Soften your belly, your chest, and your neck. Relax your arms and your hands. Soften your mouth. The area around your nose, the little muscles around your eyes. Feel how your entire face softens. And then notice how a sense of relaxation and calm moves down your spine. Now slowly move your focus to your breath. And just watch how the inhale comes by itself, followed by the exhale. Just watch how your breath comes naturally. You don't have to do anything about it. Now maybe just try to realize what else is there. Just watch which kind of emotions come up or which kind of thoughts. Observe without hanging on to any kind of emotion or thought or sensation. Now let's go back to the breath and take a couple of breaths together. Let's inhale together and imagine with the inhale that we breathe in fresh energy. And then let's exhale together, and with the exhale, we let go of everything we don't need right now. So let's try and do this together. Inhale. Fresh energy is moving into our bodies. And exhale. Let go. Once more, inhale. Fresh energy is tingling in our body. And exhale, let go. One last time, deep inhale. Fresh energy is moving into our body. And maybe quickly hold your breath. And notice the sensation of energy in your body. And exhale and let everything go that you don't need right now. Now tune into your body once more. Feel the energy, but also the sense of calm and relaxation. Now, before we come back, tune into your heart for a moment. Just ask yourself, what's the one intention, what's the one wish I would like to make true today? What's the one thing that you would like to manifest today or realize? And then imagine that this one wish or intention has already manifested. It's already there. And enjoy the sensation that is coming. Maybe give it a little smile. And then send this beautiful smile of yours into our crowd today. Share your happy moment with everyone here today. And feel the connection with everyone, even though we're so far away from each other. And also enjoy receiving the smiles of the others. And with this smile on your face and the knowledge that your wish is already manifested, slowly and gradually come back. Feel your chair underneath and the connection with your feet on the ground. When you're ready and you have your eyes closed, open them now. Imagine everyone is smiling at you right now. And yeah, welcome back. Welcome to your moment of presence. And welcome to mindfulness and innovation go hand in hand. Thank you very much for this shared meditative moment right now. I think it's more important than ever at the moment to take breaks, to connect with yourself, but then to also realize that we're always connected with each other. And if you want to use the chat function now, maybe just share with all of us how you're feeling now, how you're feeling after this meditation, if you felt the little smiles of encouragement that were flowing towards you. And yeah, let's get started with a few things on mindfulness and innovation. Here's a short overview of our table of contents today. So we're going to start with us, with our lives and what is there, goals, a lot of uncertainty and growth. We will touch upon the current, well, let's call it situation and not crisis, but then we will also look at how growth, transformation and innovation have become so important in our lives, but also in organizations and companies. We will look at what this actually has to do with resilience, why collaboration is getting more and more important, and what collaboration has to do with empathy and emotional intelligence, and how all of that comes together with innovation, creativity, and creating change. If you have questions as I share these slides, feel free to add the questions in the comment sections, and we will have a couple of minutes towards the end to talk about your questions and all the thoughts that come up. So I've already received a nice and kind introduction here, just a few words on me. You've already heard this. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mindway. We offer mindfulness-based trainings for organizations. We touch upon agility and work, and we basically reconnect all of this with our beautiful minds. I've written a book about this, and I'm also a podcaster and a personal coach. yeah, which you can find more details on my website. So, but now to you, our lives. What's happening in our lives is we talk a lot about change, and I think all change really sparks or is sparked by that little thing that we call courage. So what I was thinking, whenever we talk about change and transformation and innovation, I think we can look at this circle of courage, which oftentimes relates to what we experience in life. But in order to really realize what these experiences mean, we need to share them, we need to talk about them. And I think only then actually starts what we call a growth process. But this growth process is never linear, it's continuous, but not linear. And this is why I think in order to really grow, we need to continuously learn, to adapt, and to empower each other for the experience that we share. So what we have all realized, I think, is if we set out to achieve something, we set a goal. Usually we set a very high goal, and we want to achieve a result by putting in a lot of effort into achieving this goal. So what we expect from ourselves, you can see that on the red arrow, usually is when we put in a lot of effort, the result is going to be amazing, and the red arrow just goes up. So, but the truth is, usually the result develops somewhat differently. As you can see here, and what research found out as well, is that usually we put in a lot of effort, and at the beginning, the result is really going up, getting better and better, but at some point, there kind of occurs an adaptation. And that adaptation is a point where what we want and what our cognitive system wants, what the brain wants, doesn't always reflect what the body wants, the somatic system. So there happens an adaptation. And so what do I mean by that? I basically mean our brain says, hey, I want to achieve this goal. So you put in a lot of effort. But at some point your body says, hey, this is too much for me, you know, I'm getting stressed, I'm experiencing kind of symptoms that are feeling like I need a break. But very often the brain and the cognitive system wants something very different from what our body wants. And by aligning what the body wants with what the brain wants, we can kind of ensure that when we put in effort, it also matches the result. And I think this is really where mindfulness starts. So I asked you before to take a piece of paper and a pen. And what I would like you to do now is write down, what do you sense when you're stressed? What does your body tell you when you're stressed? I can say for me, I usually feel that in my stomach. Sometimes I also notice that my neck gets a little bit stiff. Other people have reported when they are stressed, they get super hot. So maybe just write down for a moment what you feel when you're stressed. And the next time you feel that, you realize, aha, maybe here my brain wants something different from what my body wants. So a moment of writing down, and feel free to share it in the chat so we can all learn from each other. All right, thank you very much. And I think this is a really important starting point for transformation and change. So I think we can all agree on that our world is changing, and stress and uncertainty can really become barriers to change. We will look at this in more detail in a second. At the same time, when we look at the workplace, at companies, we all have noticed that collaboration and working together is getting more and more important. However, it is pretty hard under pressure because our focus shifts. We're not as empathetic anymore. We are more focused on ourselves. And within this context, it's really hard to realize innovation and new ideas. And very often, new ideas don't really fit into grown structures or hierarchies and processes, which makes it even harder to realize innovation. What I have realized over all the years when I gave transformation journeys and workshops, there was this beautiful little sentence that started with yes, but. You've probably all heard about it. Yes, but in my opinion is the greatest killer of innovation and creativity. And I think what we are experiencing right now is the yes and. And I think the yes and is really showing in terms of our current crisis, which I think we can observe as an accelerator of change, especially when it comes to digital work, home work, remote work. So before this big COVID pandemic that we're experiencing now, there were a couple of effects of the digital transformation on the workplace. 70% of the workforce in Germany reported stress and pressure. 16% of an average of 7.5 sick days were caused by psychological stress symptoms, which costs around 45 billion euros of costs per year in Germany for continued payment in case of sickness. So we really have to see how these numbers play out now. But I think in terms of stress and pressure, the numbers have probably gone up a little bit, the sick days well. We'll talk about this another day, and the costs, well, we know right now they are enormous. What we've also experienced before the digital transformation was a lot of talk about, hey, we need digital office, we need more digital skills in the workplace to collaborate, to work remotely in virtual teams. But oftentimes there was this sentence that started with yes, but. Now we see that the acceleration has really happened. 100% of our meetings are online, about 65% of the workforce work from home, and employees actually report that they get more done than they did when they were present in the office. So I think these are great and beautiful news. We are all learning in our circle. Yes, and what is becoming more and more important is really health and happiness. I think especially when we look at ourselves at the moment, we realize that happiness is getting so important in dealing with emotions of uncertainty and fear. What is also becoming more important, especially when we talk about collaboration, is empathy and emotional intelligence in order to establish really deep relationships in the workplace and beyond. And all of this fosters creativity and innovation, which is, in my opinion, a way of connecting to that deeper knowledge that we hold all within. So what can mindfulness do to all of that when we talk about mindfulness? Let's take a step back first. What is mindfulness? Mindfulness is being present in the here and now without judgment. And we associate a lot of different mindfulness practices with mindfulness, like meditation, like yoga, like breathing practices, and there are a lot more. In the past years, what we have seen is an emergence of a lot of mindfulness programs in the workplace. And the beauty of our days is whatever we put into the workplace has to be filled with analytics, and we need to know what is happening. And these mindfulness practices for the workplace have been tested by neuroscience, by medical experts, by psychologists, and they found out that programs of 6 to 8 weeks really have an effect on us. The sense of stress lowers, which was measured by the cortisol level. Our sleep improves through regular mindfulness practice. And I think what is also great, the performance under pressure improves, especially for leaders. So now you probably ask yourself, so which kind of practices can I use for that? These programs are usually a combination of meditation practices, of practicing communication, like real listening and being there with the other person. They include movement practices and practices for reflection. So when you're thinking now what do I do about my stress level? One recommendation here is to embed a regular practice of breathing into your day, or maybe start the day with conscious breathing that really helps to relieve the sense of stress in your body. And there will be more practices towards the end. So now we're focused on ourselves, we come to ourselves through a mindfulness practice. We are more present with what is without judgment. And the next question is, how do we bring that into the we part, into how we collaborate, how we work together in a team? These programs I talked about before also show that mindfulness practice supports empathy and emotional intelligence. Basically, mindfulness practice activates the parts in the brain that are responsible for empathy and emotional intelligence. For the ones who want to know the details, these are the prefrontal lobes. And how can we practice that? In the first place, we can practice that through attentive listening in conversations. And the beauty is that these tests really show that the attention spans got longer in conversations, which was especially shown for leaders and people with responsibility. And then what also is increasing is the level of appreciation for the accomplishments of ourselves and others. So basically our emotional intelligence, which means our level of understanding ourselves and our level of understanding each other. So maybe another practice for that is just sending mental thank you notes to your colleagues or co-workers or people that you've had a beautiful moment with during the day. That already creates the empathy parts in your brain and makes you an empathy pro over time. Now, last part, innovation, creativity. Mindfulness is a beautiful way to tap deeper into your source of inner wisdom. And I think this is really where new ideas arise, new ideas of creativity and new ways for innovation. What has been shown in these programs in companies, but also in neuroscientific research, is that through regular mindfulness practice, and that can start with around 10 minutes a day, we as human beings improve our capability to learn and also our mental flexibility, which is basically our ability to adapt to new situations by digesting new and complex information. This also has an effect on our openness to, well, openness for new ideas and openness for crazy stuff. And it also has an effect on our courage to change. And at the end, mindfulness practices also help us to embrace the creative potential of collective intelligence. What do I mean by that? Basically, when you're working in a team, you have a lot of beautiful brains with a lot of great ideas. And by embracing the collective intelligence, we make space for all of the ideas within the team to foster new innovation in the organization. That all sounds very theoretical. Maybe let's go back to that and I give you a short recommendation for a mindfulness practice here. One mindfulness practice that has proven to really foster innovation is open awareness meditation. So probably you've heard about the people who say, oh, meditation, this is not for me because I cannot not think. And I think a lot of people think meditation is not thinking. We have an amazing brain, but our brain is not made to not think. However, we can practice to think a little less, and we can do this through open awareness meditation, which is basically just watching which kind of thoughts are coming up during the meditation and letting them pass like clouds. So you look at the sky, you see a cloud come and you let it pass, and you can try and train to do the same for the thoughts that come up in your meditation. That is called open awareness meditation. So let's break that down into mind hacks for life. Mindfulness on the go, I call it. So what can you do during the day, especially when you have a busy work day? It doesn't really matter if you're working virtually or in the office. Take regular breaks for breathing. So for instance, when you have a meeting, an online meeting or a real meeting, and you know you have 10 or 15 minutes in between, take a moment, sit down, don't look at your desktop, and just breathe. Inhale deeply 3 times, exhale deeply 3 times, and then tune into your body and just feel what's happening. Usually you will instantly feel a sense of relaxation in your body and a new sense of presence. Then Digital Mind 3.0, I think we all have beautiful devices that we look at a lot during the day. And we can also use our smartphone as a mindful companion. When you look for apps like random reminders, you will find beautiful apps that help you during the day to remind you to make breaks. So just use that. And then empathy equals me, moments of compassion. I already said that. Maybe during the day, take breaks to say thank you to other people mentally, send them a little smile. and just see what happens, and this way train your empathy muscle. I usually get a lot of questions from our clients. So how can we embed more mindfulness at work? One start is to listen mindfully. And that sounds nice in theory. It's not always that easy to bring that into practice. So what you can do there in order to listen mindfully, when you talk to someone the next time, first of all, ask yourself, am I really there with this person right now? Then in the next step, ask yourself, what am I feeling as I'm listening to this person? Then also, what is happening in my body? What are the physical sensations? And then in the end, maybe just mirror what you're hearing. So instead of saying, hey, now I've listened to you and I give you A, B, C as advice and well, then problem solved. Instead of doing that, just mirror. This is what I hear and this is what I understand. Am I right with this? And I think that's really a beautiful way to provide space for other people through listening mindfully. That, by the way, also works beautifully when you're in a leadership position. Another beautiful way is mindful team check-ins, especially at the moment when you're working virtually. You can establish that as a morning ritual. And how can you do that? Mindful team check-in. Imagine you're starting a meeting, and before starting with all the to-dos and all the checklists of the days and the big projects, take 3 to 4 minutes to establish some focus and some connection in the team. You can do that by just asking everyone how they are, and then go through the circle and everyone can share how they are. You don't have to comment that, just listen, and afterwards allow everyone to leave their thoughts and to leave the things that are worrisome to them at the moment, and that's fine. Another way is also to just have a moment of silence together at the beginning of a meeting. That's also a great way to establish focus and presence. And then a last advice on innovation, brainstorming, and creativity. Before you start a creative brainstorming or a design thinking session or whatever, do a little open awareness meditation together. Maybe just 10 weeks or maybe even a little less, but explain what open awareness is and then try to do that together. This is a great way to invite new ideas. Maybe you know that of yourself. Sometimes when you not think, suddenly there bubbles up a new idea and you're like, hey, where's this spark coming from? This is exactly what can happen in open awareness meditation. So combine that with brainstormings and just see what happens. And in this case, I think it's especially important to abandon the yes, but before, and to invite the yes and into the brainstorming session afterwards. All right. Yeah, we've gone through a lot of things now. I think you received maybe some new bits of information, maybe not so new. And I would like to open up the round now for questions, for thoughts, or for anything else that you would like to share.
Exactly. So just use the chat function, and if you feel like you have a longer question you want to reuse your microphone, you can raise your hand and we can give you speaking permission as well. Maybe a question from me, Martina. So I've been using, because you talked about Digital Mind 3.0, I've been starting using an app called Headspace. I don't know if you've heard about it before. Yeah. I think some in the audience might have used this before as well. So I've been using this for, I think, 2 months now, and always taking about 5 to 10 minutes out of my day, normally before I go to sleep. And I already felt like it helps me to be more calm and to rest easier, maybe to sleep easier. Have you tried apps like this before, or do you recommend them as well?
I think, yes, apps are a beautiful way to start the meditation practice. What I like about apps like Headspace and others is that they give you kind of a guidance for things you can focus on if you're experiencing stress, or if you're experiencing like, oh, I'm not sleeping well. I think that's a great start. What I have experienced when you meditate for a longer time, you also notice that your meditation routines change. And for me, I can say I need more and more silence during my meditation. So basically when someone talks, I'm like, can you not just be silent? And I think that's a process. What I would really recommend is to experiment with different things, like start with Headspace and at some point maybe go to a shared meditation practice in a yoga studio or in a little temple. And at some point maybe you feel like you want to do a retreat. Just experiment with the different things you want and you need and the different spaces where you meditate, and just see what works for you. I think the most important thing, you feel like it works for me and I can enjoy it.
Cool. I just saw Andre Ullman ask, any recommendations to get more insights about this topic, mindfulness?
Read my book.
I guess read your book. Yeah, that's
well, where to start? It really depends which angle you take. So there's a lot of research from a neuroscientific background, which is great. There's research on what is happening in the brain, which kind of parts of the brain are activated during the meditation. And I think that's really, really good for people who need their stats and the facts and the rational parts. That's amazing. Then there is a lot of reflection on the meditation experience from Buddhists, on practitioners like the Dalai Lama and people who are working with the Dalai Lama. There are amazing research groups like the University of Wisconsin-Madison. They have been researching on the topic, especially with a focus on happiness and later on with a focus on the workplace. That's a great resource. And besides that, there's like ever more literature coming. When you look at my book, I've basically combined innovation, new work, so what's happening in the workplaces right now, digitalization and mindfulness. Maybe if you want a little bit of more of how you can bring mindfulness to the workplace or to working life, that's an advice as well. And yeah, there's so many sources and blogs and podcasts about this right now. So I think if you search a little, there is really a lot to find.
Cool. Mercy M asks, what about music for meditation?
I love music for meditation. If you, again, research, if you look at the research, what is happening in the brain during meditation is you basically move to different wavelengths in the brain. And it is said that when you listen to different kinds of music, that really has the same effect as different kinds of meditation practices. What I do is I sometimes go to YouTube and just search for meditation music, and then you find different kinds of music styles, like music for focus or for concentration, but then also music for dealing with emotional stress. That works very well for me, and maybe just see what works for you. I think there are also playlists on Spotify. I think it's really a great way when you're receptive to music. Yeah.
There's another question from Sabrina. She asks, you're speaking of mindfulness practices in companies. From your experience, how is the development towards greater awareness in the companies going? Are there companies you know that integrate mindfulness already in a fruitful way?
Oh, wow. That's like several questions in one. Thank you, Sabrina. Beautiful. So what I observe is so let's start another way. When I talk to mindfulness practitioners who have been offering mindfulness to the workplace for a couple of years, they all agree that the notion of what mindfulness in the workplace means is shifting. Let's start at this. A couple of years ago, it was all esoteric and religious and not for me. And there's a new openness these days. And I think that is great. What I have experienced is that we have kind of two different parties. We have the parties who say, oh, our employees want mindfulness, awesome, we're going to invite someone who gives a talk on that, and we've basically achieved a quick fix. And quick fix don't work for mindfulness because, as I said before, changes in the brain take time, and with a 2-hour workshop you won't change anything. But when the companies are ready to really go for it, to commit for it, and when the leadership is on board, this is really important, leadership has to be on board, then you can really achieve great things of like more awareness, more empathy, better collaboration through mindfulness practices, but then really start with longer programs, combine leadership awareness with grassroots movements, and also I think that's really important, talk about the results. So make this a regular thing, make it an open thing, and also be honest about the results, because another thing that I have been observing is, especially in the workplace, people are like, okay, we have our strategies, we have our KPIs, so we want results and we want them fast. Sometimes mindfulness also brings up things that aren't entirely nice, like negative emotions or fears and uncertainty. And it's important, especially in the workplace, to talk about this as well. And then a last note on this, with the current turbulences we see, I have seen a boost in mindfulness in companies. Like people report that they are more aware of how they communicate with each other. They are more aware of how important empathy is. So I think at the moment we have a great chance to embrace mindfulness in the virtual workplace even more.
I mean, this also kind of relates to it. There's another question from Benoit. Yeah. How does, if any, mindfulness in companies correlate with social impact? Or in your experience, does mindfulness in companies correlate in any way with positive social impact?
That's I'm going to start to answer this another way around. What I have observed, and I think what everyone observes doing mindfulness practice, is the ego. At first in mindfulness practice, you get very aware of the ego and how powerful the ego is and how important it is. But then at some point you also notice that there is more than the ego. There are others as well. Now this relates back to the empathy, right? And the more and more people practice mindfulness, the more and more they have this need to feel a sense of purpose in what they do. And if we put purpose into what we do, and if we're aiming for purpose in our work, this naturally brings us, or most of us, to this wish for social impact. So I think this is, I don't have any numbers on this, unfortunately. Maybe that's a great topic to research on in the next step. But certainly the more this wish for purpose comes into the workplace, and I think it's very evident, especially right now, the more we strive for social impact, especially in the workplace. And I think that is really, really important and a great thing as well. I hope that answers your question.
Megan asks, I feel like one can put a lot of pressure on themselves to do perfect meditation. Otherwise, it's not worth it. Do you have any tips to take the pressure off when taking time to meditate?
Well, first of all, yes, I know about the pressure. I like the thought of the beginner's mind. There is a beautiful book on Zen meditation on the beginner's mind as well. And I think that's how we should try to start every meditation, without any expectations, without anything we want to achieve. Just be there, show up for yourself, and see what happens, and just watch like a child, you know, be surprised by what happens. and don't put any pressure on yourself. And what I said before is really, when you feel uncomfortable or when you feel like this is not feeling good today, it depends, you know. Sometimes it's the meditation practice that doesn't work, and sometimes it's just the emotions that come up that aren't nice to look at today. So, but it's always up to you to decide whether you want to stay in the practice or whether you want to shift or do something else that feels mindful as well. For regular time slots and practices, I like morning practices because I feel that my mind is still pretty empty in the mornings, and I have a lot of really crazy ideas in the morning. Other people like mindfulness practices before or after lunch, and some people really like to practice before they go to bed. So just find something that works for you and that makes you feel good in the first place, and make space for this thing that feels good to shift. As I said before, mindfulness practices shift, your experiences shift, you need different things at different times, and that's totally fine as well.
Perfect, thank you. Jacob has a very interesting question. He says, right, what do you say to people who say that meditation makes you accept anything and thereby fosters to obey? An expression, does it kill critical thinking and calms down change or rebellion?
So I know that the notions of mindfulness are very different. There is someone who has inspired me a lot, and he's called Bernie Glassman. If you want to Google him, he's been a very scientific mind who found to Zen practice and mindfulness. And what he did, he started bakeries in New York to give people a chance. So he was very active in his mindfulness practices and in the way he expressed what mindfulness means to him. And this is a little bit the approach I follow on mindfulness. I think mindfulness in the first place is a way to connect with yourself, to feel that sense of purpose, as we talked about before. And once you feel that sense of purpose, you have to act on that. And in which way you act on that really differs and depends on the person, and also on, well, what your passions are. But I think at the end of the day, active mindfulness practice also means acting on what you feel is right. So no, I disagree. You don't get less critical. You just see the things from a different perspective. You are becoming more it is a way to embed acceptance in what you do. And I think especially when you're active, you need acceptance for a lot of things that are not so nice. And it's also a chance to, I think, when you're getting active, to find the right words without attacking other people, without just reacting. We say in mindfulness practice, there opens up a space between the stimulus and the response. And I think it's just a great way to be positively active with responsibility and without too much judgment.
Perfect. I think that's it when it comes to questions.
All right. Are we moving towards the end, or do we want to, because I would actually like one or two more questions, or like to invite one or two more questions on, or if there are any, on like the situation right now and on mindfulness. So if you have any questions on that, how to deal mindfully with the current situation, please shoot now.
Okay, wait 1 second. So I give the speaking to Isabel. Isabel? Working? We can't hear you.
Maybe unmute yourself on the left. I always have to do that once more. I'm not hearing anything. No. Okay, Isabel, can you write your question maybe, or your comment?
Hello.
Oh, now, awesome. Hello.
I can hear you.
Hello. I don't know if you can hear me. I was very curious to know how we could apply those mindfulness techniques to the now and then, especially to deal with the present crisis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. I think before I stopped answering the question with acceptance, I think a lot of what is happening right now is about accepting what just is. And I think that's mindfulness really helps to go into this level of acceptance. Mindfulness practice has also an effect on your immune system, on your physical system. And I think that's really something we should be aware of as well. When we're more calm, when we're less stressed, this already has a great effect on our body and our physical constitution. So I think that really helps as well, to just always focus on yourself, sending basically some good health into your body through your mind. And another thing, I think why mindfulness, or how mindfulness practice can really help, is at the moment we have a lot of emotions in our societies, in our space. There are emotions of fear, of uncertainty, and a lot of people are lonely. They're at home, they maybe don't have any family, or they're single. So I think that is also a great way to mindfully think about people in your circles who might be lonely, who might feel stressed or anxious, and share or talk to them and give them a space to share what they are feeling without judgment, with full acceptance, and just provide space empathetically for other people as well. And I think there are a lot of ways where mindfulness can really, really help us in moving through this situation right now. Hope that helps.
Camille has also an interesting question.
Yes,
she
sure.
asks, when the stress symptoms are already there, is it too late to meditate, or can you do something about it?
Yeah, so I think we always have to say that meditation isn't therapy. So it really depends. Are you stressed, or are you panicked, or what do you really sense and feel? I have noticed that for me, mindfulness practice really helps to be more accepting of what is. That I said that before. And we did this breathing technique at the beginning, and there are different breathing techniques to really calm down the nervous system. So at the end, stress expresses itself through our body, where the nervous system kind of acts. So when you do conscious breathing techniques, you will realize that this has an effect on your stress levels and all of that. But again, please find your techniques that work for you, and also experiment with different techniques. Sometimes it already helps to just go out in nature, take a really long walk, where you focus on things that are pretty and that calm you down, or maybe you just listen to the birds. For me, that is in a way a mindfulness practice as well, and it calms down as well.
Isabel asks again, how much practice per day would you recommend?
Start with little steps. Very often I hear people tell me, I am starting meditation practice now, and from now on every day I meditate for 20 minutes. That usually doesn't work. Try to start with like 6 to 10 minutes, put them aside in the morning or in the evening or in the afternoon. And you will notice after, I don't know, a short amount of time or a longer amount of time that you need more. It's a little bit like eating chocolate. Sometimes you just want more. And then from 10 minutes, go to 12 minutes, go to 15, go to 20. I have experienced, for me in the mornings especially, I need my 30 minutes now. I could stay in meditation longer, but I think it's also always a matter of being able to embed it into your daily routine as well. So don't be too ambitious. Again, start with a beginner's mind and move with baby steps. And I think that's also a mindful way to ease yourself into the practice.
I think it's really interesting when you say you need 30 minutes now a day.
Yeah.
It's kind of like becoming an addiction for you, nearly.
So what is happening, maybe I just briefly share what is happening in some of my meditations. And again, this is not to make you super ambitious, but on a good day, when I have a really good meditation, I just feel so calm and so connected and so peaceful. And at the same time, I feel like I can just do a lot of things. And when I'm in this space where I'm calm and connected and super peaceful, the whole stress of the world is there, and I can at the same time it doesn't affect me anymore. And this is, I think, why I like to stay there a little bit. Sometimes I feel it's like surfing on the wave of mindfulness. And yeah, I kind of just really like that state.
I guess the more often you do it, you realize how much it actually helps you, and then you want to do it more. I think that's powerful as well. Yeah.